Hello, everyone. This is the Cage Engaging Gaming Guild, and today we are going to be working with Scratch. I'm going to show you guys how to make tooltips. I see lots of games out there. I haven't found too many tutorials on how to make tooltips that actually work properly. So I'm going to give you three different ways or three different types of tooltips that you will be able to use while in Scratch. So right now, if you hover over them, the sprites that I have created, there is nothing happening. So we'll start up the game or the program, still nothing happening. So I have it set. There's three different methods that you can use. First one is just basically going to be a tooltip that's going to be a right up to the top right of your mouse cursor. So wherever your mouse cursor is while it's touching the item, it will pop up. Okay, I do have it ghosted to, I believe, 30, and but it does switch based on what you're touching and disappears when you're not touching. The second method I have is down. Basically, sometimes you have tooltips and it'll just pop up a little screen right here, right? And it just changes based on what you're hovering over. You can put that box anywhere. You can make it as big as you want. You can put it in the top corner, bottom corner. It doesn't really make a difference. So I just chose to put it down the bottom. And again, you can fill that little box with whatever you want for information. I'm just putting the word apple or whatever in it because just to show you guys how it works. My third method is basically it's focused on the sprite itself, not focused on my mouse cursor. And so whatever you're clicking on, it'll just center it to a specific location on the sprite. So those are the three methods that I'm going to be showing you guys today. It's not a super difficult tutorial. If you have any questions, though, you can definitely go ahead and ask in the comments, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. All right, so let's get into this, and I'm going to show you guys step by step how this works, and hopefully you'll learn something. Everybody can just start a new file project. You're going to end up with Scratchcat here. And go in and choose yourself two more sprites of your choice. I chose the apple and the banana. You can the baseball and let's say the basketball for this round. Okay, goes out of the way. And we'll start with, I'm going to put them in order because what I'm going to do is I'm going to name them item 1, item 2. Because if you're making a game with a ton of different items, you want to try and stay as organized as you can. Item 3, that'll be those. Then we are going to start with our baseball. All right, so we're going to go with the original. Most people just, I don't know how much you guys know about Scratch, but I'm going to try and do this and explain things as I go. Try and make this as much as a tutorial as I can possibly get it. So in order to start your program, game, whatever you're making, app, you always have to click this green flag up here. So normally you're making a game, you're going to have to, something is going to be activated by clicking the green flag. So you're going to pull out one of these, I would say that's called a hat, I think they call it. And this hat, anything that you put underneath this will happen when you click on this flag up here, okay? So to start, we want to set the positions of our ball, our cat, and our basketball. Okay, ball, cat, and basketball. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the code for the baseball, and it's basically going to be the exact code for the cat, but we're just going to have to change a few. That's all. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to position this ball. So motion, and in order to actually move the sprite around, you just drag a go to X, Y, and those are the positions on the X and Y axis of a grid. And we're going to put in, let's 20, and we don't want it to be read at 0. We'll bring it up to, let's say, 25. That sounds good. And then from there, we want it to show. So you're going to go to look, so you're going to scroll down a little bit, and you're going to show, and all that's telling it is to just show yourself. If you're hiding, then come out and see us. After that, we are going to need to broadcast a message to the tooltips box that we are going to create. We haven't made it yet, but we are going to create it here in a little bit. So we're going to need to make a new message. Bring that down here. And we're going to call this message hover. Yeah, we want it to start hovering over where our mouse is pointed or wherever we selected. And then we are going to start with the head or the hat. We're going to change it to hover, and we are going to program what that is going to say. So for this, we are going to need a forever loop. And in that forever loop, we're just going to bring an if statement and drop that in the mouth of the loop. And from this point, what we want is for it to sense whether our mouse pointer is actually touching this sprite or that sprite or that sprite. And if it is, we want it to do something. So we're going to go to sensing, and we'll drag a touching mouse pointer. So if it's touching the mouse pointer, then I want it to do something. Okay? So we need to create some variables. Variables are just numbers that you are going to make that are going to change based on what you need happening in your game or program. And so we're going to make a new one. We're going to call this item. So this is where we're going to determine which item is which, and this is going to be for all sprites. We're also going to make another one called show tooltip. And all this is doing is going to, for all sprites as well, it's going to check to see if our tooltip is it needs to be showed or not. It's basically a Boolean, and it's a true or false statement. It's either going to be 0 or 1. Some people like to put true and false, type in the words. I'm good with just 0 and 1. I understand how binary works. If it's 0, it's false. If it's 1, it's true. Okay, so at this point in our if statement, we are going to set our two variables. The item, we are going to set that to 1 because it's the first item. It's called item 1. And then the second one, we're going to change that to show tooltip to 1. So that means if my mouse is actually touching this specific sprite, it's going to turn it on. It's going to change this specific one to 1. All right. Otherwise, if I'm not touching anything, it's going to show tooltip as 0. I'm not touching anything to turn it on, so just shut it off. Right? At this point, we do need to send a message out, okay, to the tooltip box that's going to turn it on. We're going to create a new broadcast, and we're going to call it TT1, which is just basically short for tooltip number 1. Okay. And at that point, what's going to happen is you will cause an error if you're not doing this properly. If I just left this as is, it would probably work somewhat. But what happens is when you go to switch it to the next one, this one here is going to stay on because it's in a forever loop. And once you turn it on, you'll see it highlights yellow, and it will not shut off unless you shut it off physically or have some other method built into your code to shut it off. Hitting the stop button will work. Okay, it's done now. But you want to make sure that you have a way when you're moving from one sprite to another, shut this specific one off for the ball so that when you're on the cat one's on and not the ball and not the basketball. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to control, and in here they have this cool little command called Stop All. And you can click on the drop down menu. You can stop all, which means every single bit of code in your whole project. If you have 100 sprites, all the code in all of them is going to stop. And that's a good way to end your game if you have a game over or whatever. If you need to reset, that will stop everything. Or you can just stop everything in this specific script, not the green flags clicked. If I had 4 or 5 other things here, it would not stop any of that. It would just stop this specific script that I would put it in. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do, though, is to stop any other sprites. Or no, I do want to do that. Sorry, my bad. I do want to do this. So we're going to drag and drop this, and you'll notice the bottom is flat. And because the bottom is flat, it means you cannot add anything more after you put this in. So I'm just going to drag and drop this right here. And that should be all we need to code for the first half of this. Okay, that's for the hover. So next, we need to open up tooltips. Okay, so how that's going to work is we need to receive this tooltip broadcast. So we are going to go to events again. And when I receive, we're going to pull out another hat. We're going to have to create a new, no, we don't actually have to create a new message because we already made it. Tooltip 1. So when we receive tooltip 1, okay, forever. So we're going to bring a forever loop out here. And in that forever loop, we're going to need another if statement. And this time, what we want it to sense, okay, is if it's not touching the ball anymore, or the cat, or whatever, but this one here is going to be specifically the baseball, not touching it anymore, we need to know that so that we can change these numbers back to something else. So we want to shut the tooltip off, and we want to change the item back to 0, or you can just, I changed mine back to 0. It's just a good way of resetting it so that it doesn't stay at 1. Because if you do leave it at 1, it could cause a problem elsewhere down the road. So from this point, we're going to go down to operators, and we're going to grab a not operator, and that just means whatever I put in here is going to be opposite of what it is. And what we want to do, sensing, pull a touching mouse pointer. So if it's not touching the mouse pointer, so if my mouse pointer is no longer touching the baseball, then I want you to do this. Okay? We are going to go back to our variables, and we are going to set the 2 here that we changed to 1. We're going to change them both to 0. And that will reset so that it will shut off our tooltip when we take our mouse off of them. At this point, we want to restart the check to see if we're hovering over top of our item again. Okay, so this right now is shut off because we would have stopped the script. So we need to start it back up again. And to do that, we're going to go to events. We're going to broadcast a hover, and we're going to put it there. And now, when we are off of it, we have to also shut down the script again. This script specifically. So we're going to go here, and we are going to stop this script. So that, in a nutshell, is going to be our code for the baseball. And all we're going to do now at this point is we're going to drag and we're going to drop all of our code into the other 2 items. So we will do that for the cat. We will do that for the basketball. We will do that. All right, next. We are going to work on the actual tooltip box. Okay. Actually, before we do that, we should switch these. So this is going to set the item. Everything is stacked on top, so I'm just going to clean up my blocks. We also want to change these coordinates because we don't want everything on top of each other. So we'll change X for the cat to 0, but we'll keep Y 25. And it is item, it is item number 2, so we are going to put that to item number 2. This one here, though, is going to stay the same. Broadcasting, it will be tooltip number 2, so TT2. You will have to change that, and that means when you receive tooltip 2 will change, but hover can stay the same. It doesn't matter. We can have 50 hovers. It doesn't matter, because all that's checking for is if your mouse is actually hovering over the specific sprite that you're on. Okay? We'll go to item 3. We're going to do the same thing. Clean up the blocks. This one, instead of negative 120, we're going to put positive 120. We will change this to item 3 and create tooltip 3, TT3. Change it down here. That should be everything we need to do for our items. Okay, so now we will go into creating a new sprite. We're going to click on paint here. That's going to open up a brand new sprite, and we are going to call this tooltip TT box. Okay, and in here we are going to have to create this. So I'm not sure if you've worked with the graphics much, not, but I'm going to assume you know a little bit about what's going on tutorial. And I just left it to the color. The default color when you start a new graphic is always going to be this weird looking purple. I say weird, I kind of like it, but it's purple. It's totally up to you if you want to change it. You would do that by clicking on the drop down menu, and you can just move this around to wherever you might want to leave it. You can figure out how much color you want. If you want it to be a little bit whited out, you can add that, and the brightness as well. You can make it darker, lighter, totally up to you. So we're going to take, I was going to leave it on purple, but now that I've moved it around, I'm a good gold color guy. I like gold. So we'll put that somewhere on the yellow. That's the color we're going to choose for this. Now, that's going to be the fill of the box. We also want to make sure that there's a black outline. You don't have to. You don't have to have an outline if you want. And if you don't, you just reduce this number here to 0 and the outline will just disappear. Okay, that means there will not be a black line around your box. But I like to have one. So we're going to put that, let's say 3. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a box here in the middle. And sorry, I have to click on the square for rectangle. And we are going to hold the shift button down. When you hold the shift button down, it makes a perfect square. You don't have to have a perfect square, obviously. You could make a rectangle if you want. That's totally up to you. But for this purpose, I'm going to make a perfect square. And I'm just going to let go of it. And then I'm going to drag it around and line up the little cross here with the bullseye in the center. Always make sure you do that when you're coding in Scratch, because later on when you go to set the XY values, if you don't have it centered, it's going to throw off everything. Okay, so make sure you have it centered onto that. And right now my XY value is 3628. Okay, so we're just going to zero that off so that it's in the center of my game screen. All right. And the reason I do that is because when you start putting values into, where you want this specific sprite to show up, I don't want it to be corrected by these two numbers here. I want it to go exactly where I want it. So if these are 0, 0, any numbers I input from this point will be exactly where I want it. But if this was x20 and y20, it would actually add 20 to the numbers that I try and change it to, which I do not want happening. So I always zero these out. Okay? So from this point here, we are going to take and we're going to duplicate this 2 times, just because we have 3 different items. So we need 3 different boxes. In costume 1, we are going to change this here to just the number 1. It's that simple. Here we're going to put number 2. Some people might actually put a name like box 1, box 2, box 3. That's totally up to you if you want to do that. It does work. There is a other code that you would have to add to this for that to work properly. But for the purposes of this tutorial, there's no reason why I can't call it 1, 2, and 3. It's going to work just fine. And inside the box, I'm going to put some text. So we want the first item to be called, oh, a mistake. You have to make sure that you change the fill of your letters to something other than what you have, because what happens is it just is the same exact color and you don't, it's like invisible. So I'm going to change it to black and we're going to call this baseball. Okay. And you'll notice that the word baseball is outside of my box. I'm just going to shrink it down a bit so that it fits. And again, I'm going to get the little cross. You can barely see it. Let me zoom in a bit here. You can see the cross is still there. Okay. So we're going to drag this and center that also. That makes it perfectly centered on square. All right. In the next one, we are going to take and we are going to call this scratch. Oop. And we'll hit enter, cat. You'll notice that the letters are going to be a little bit wonky. So what we're going to do is we're just going to center the word cat by hitting the space bar a little bit, so that it looks more centered. And that looks okay. I mean, it's not perfect, but it definitely looks okay. And then on the last one, we're going to put basketball. Center that. We're going to actually, before we center, we're going to have to shrink it down and then. All right. So that looks okay. All right. Now, again, you could add whatever you want. Let's say you're making an RPG and you have a sword and you hover over it and you want, how much the sword costs up in this corner. You want to know how much damage it's doing. You can put that up in this corner. The name of the sword. Is it a rare item? Is it a legendary item? That's totally up to what you want to do. Okay. If there's a crafting cost, you could have the crafting cost down here. 3 pieces of iron, a piece of leather. That's, again, totally up to what you want this tooltip to do for you in your game specifically, is how you're going to arrange these boxes. Okay, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I just need you to see that it works. By hovering over the baseball, it needs to say baseball. By hovering over cat, it has to say cat. It doesn't. I don't want the basketball to show up here. I want it to show up on the basketball. So in saying that, we have the first 3 done. Okay. Now I am going to, because I have 3 different ways to show you how to do this, different styles, I guess. We are going to create 3 more styles. Okay. So I'm going to take this basketball. I'm going to duplicate it. It's going to call it number 4. Because what happens is it's just going to go the next number in order, but it wasn't in order. So I'm going to, I dragged it and I put it in order from the other 3. That's the baseball. I'm also going to duplicate the scratch cat. I'm going to pull that down here. Up right there. And I'm going to duplicate the basketball. And we'll drag that to the bottom of 5. Okay. Sometimes you have to do it twice. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 2 of each. So the reason why I did this is now I am going to click on this baseball and I'm going to click on this reshape icon right here. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to create points on your sprites wherever you click. Okay, you'll notice I put a bunch of different points. I'm going to take them back because I'm just showing you as an example. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a break here and here. And then it allows you to drag any one of these points. I could drag this if I want. I could drag this one if I want. I could actually delete this. I could click on it and click delete, and it's going to cause a weird shape to happen, right? I don't want that, so I'm going to back it up. But I do want to drag, and this is where I'm going to create kind of like a chat bubbly type of effect. And pull it and drag that there. Okay. And I'm going to call this not 4 anymore, but I'm going to call this 11. All right. Then I want all the next two to match the same shape as this one. So I'm going to take my select tool, which completely selects just the outline, not the words, and I'm going to copy it. Go over here, and we are going to delete this box, and I'm going to paste the new one, and you'll notice that it's on top of my words. So what's happening there is a layering problem. So all you have to do to fix that is just go up here and click, I want this specific thing to be in the back of the words. So we're just going to click that, and now that fixes the problem. We'll then go to the next one. We're going to delete this, hit paste, and send that to the back. So now we have three identical boxes with different words in them. The only thing we have to change now is the numbers. This one's going to be 12, and this one's going to be 13. Okay? You do this however you want. If you understand this tutorial at the end, you'll be able to put whatever you want here, and it'll still work. This is the way I'm doing it for this tutorial. Okay? So now that we've done that, okay, we need to put in the code for this. Okay, so to start, when the number one key is pressed, that's how we're going to start, because we do have three different styles. So we are going to have to program in all three different styles. But I'm just going to do one at a time. And like I did earlier, I'm just going to copy the code 3 times, duplicate it 3 times. Instead of doing it all from scratch one at a time, I'll just do one, copy it 2 more times. So when the number one key is pressed, what I want this to do is broadcast. I go to events, and we want it to broadcast which style we want it to actually do. So we're going to create a new message, and we want, let's see, tooltip style 1. Okay? So we want it to broadcast that. And then we needed to receive that broadcast. Okay? So when I receive broadcast, which is TT style 1, we are going to start a forever loop. And in this forever loop, we are going to bring an if-else statement, and it's going to start off with a question to itself. Is the tooltip actually showing? Is it on? Because if it is, we need it to do something. So we need to see if the tooltip is on, and as I said earlier, if the tooltip is 0, it's off, but if it's 1, then it's on. So we're going to change this to 1, because if it's 1, we want it to be on, and we are going to just slide this. If the variable show tooltip is equal to 1, then we want everything in this first mouth to happen. Okay? If it's not on, so if show tooltip is equal to anything at all but 1, but again, it's only going to be 0 or 1, that's how I have it set up, then I don't want you to do what's in the first mouth, I want you to do what's in the second mouth, right? So from this point, what we wanted to do for the first method that I showed, or the first style that I showed you, was it's just going to put a little box to the top right of my mouse pointer. Wherever my mouse pointer is, there's going to be a little box. So let's say my mouse pointer was here. The box would be about where it's at right now, top right of it. Okay, and it'll follow your mouse pointer around. So we need to go to sensing, or not sensing, motion, and we are going to go to random position. We're going to drag one of these puppies, leave it there, and we're going to change the drop down menu to mouse pointer. Okay, so that's going to tell it to just go right to the mouse pointer wherever it's at. After that, we need to change the value, because if I left it here, what's going to happen is it will just be in the center of my mouse pointer usually, and wherever I go, it's going to be right dead center, and I don't really want it to do that. I want it to be to the top right, or the bottom right, or the top left. It's totally up to you how you want to set it up, but for me, for this, we are going to put it top right. So in order to figure out exactly where that is, I'm going to show you a little trick. You might have seen this on other tutorials, but we are going to first change X by, put that there and change Y by, and we are just going to leave that like so for now, because we have to figure out how much we want to change it by. So in order to figure that out, I'm going to go to my costume, and I'm going to see that my box, my perfect square, is 83 by 83 pixels. All right. So because I know that it's 83 by 83, in order for it, since it's going to be in the center right now, and I want it to go up and to the right, exactly half of whatever the size of the box is. Because right now it is in the half point, it's right in the middle. That means I'm halfway to either side. So half of 83 would be 41 and a half, but 41 is close enough. It doesn't have to be dead on for this. So we're going to change X by 41, and we are also going to change Y by 41. Okay, I could put 42. It still would look fine, but for this, we're just going to use 41, and that should be A1. At this point, when I have my box over top of my things, I would like to be able to, just in case I'm pointing at, let's say, Scratch Cat's foot here, I want this to be somewhat transparent so you can still see the rest of Scratch Cat. So in order to do that, you're going to use what they call a ghost effect. Okay? So you are going to go to looks, and you're going to set the color effect, but we're going to change the drop down to ghost. And we're going to set the ghost effect here to, let's go with, the higher the number, the more opaque that the sprite is. So basically at 100 it's right now it's at 100, it's 100% opaque, there's no ghosting whatsoever, but at 0 it would be completely invisible, you wouldn't see it at all. So we're going to go with something like 30, I believe. Then we're going to switch the costume to items. So we're going to go over here and spring one of these down. And the reason why we are going to switch the costume to item is because whatever the item number is here, let's say it's item number 1 or item number 2. So the baseball is 1, this is 2, this is 3. We want the costume up here to match it. So the basketball is number 1, the Scratch Cat is 2, it's 3, so it needs to match whatever item we're hovering over. And it will get that code from the original code that we put here. See, it's setting the item to 1, it's setting the item to 2, oh, sorry, right here, 1, 2, and 3. That's where it's going to change what picture shows up in your tooltip. Okay, so in order to do that, we're just going to drag the actual variable and we are going to drop that right into there. So it's going to switch it to whatever item is at the time. If it's 0, it will be 0. It won't show anything. It's not going to be showing anything anyway because I have it set to hide. Then we need to show this tooltip, okay? So if it's 1, we do want it to show, so we have to do that as well. And at this point, I think that's all the code we're going to need. And if it's not showing, then we want it to do what's in the next part. Well, that one's a pretty easy one. If it's not actually hovering over top of it, well, we just want the tooltip to hide. We don't want to see it anymore. So that's all you have to do there. You're going to change that to hide, and that should be great. So basically, in a nutshell, right now, this code will work. If I was to hit the green flag, okay, it's going to work. And but for whatever reason, our baseball here has not hidden itself. And that's because I forgot one kind of important thing. We do need to hide this right at the start. Okay, so we're going to just get rid of that. And now that we've clicked the green flag, it would automatically hide that just in case it wasn't working. If I had, I haven't completely finished my code yet, but if I had, it would work properly. It's just for now, I'm just going to get rid of it so we can test it. So you'll see, if I hover over the baseball, my item and my tooltip are going to 1, which is great. That's what we want. If we come off, they both go to 0. That's what we want. We go over the cat, the item goes to 2, the tooltip is still on. We go to the 3, item 3, and tooltip is still on. So everything is working just fine. But the only thing is our box is not popping up yet. The reason for that is, in order to activate it, normally you do not have to have this code in. So if you're trying to make tooltips for your game right now, ignore putting this code in. When number 1 key is pressed, broadcast, blah, 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 blah. I only put that there because I want to be able to switch between the 3 styles to show you them. Otherwise, you might want to, whenever the game starts, so whenever you receive game start or whatever, menu open, whatever, it's completely however you have it set up in your game, then you want to fire off this code, okay? I just have it set up so that when I press the number 1 key, so I'm going to do that now, you'll see that this all lit up in yellow, so that means it's activated, and now this should work. So now baseball is popping up, it's to the top right of my mouse. Now it switches to Scratch Cat, and now it switches to basketball. So it is working just fine as long as you are touching the sprites. Okay, so now we're going to shut that down for now, and we are going to duplicate this code 2 more times. We're going to change this one to the number 2, and we're going to change this one to the number 3. We're going to broadcast style. We want to change that message to TT style 2. This one is going to be TT style 3. Again, you might have other ways if you're more advanced. You may have other ways to do this that are going to save you a little bit of code. I am doing this strictly for new coders. The easiest way to do it, okay? So this is the method that I am going to use. All right, so for the next thing, so that's your keys press. So if 2 happens, it's going to call for the second one of these to be activated or the third one, right? So what we want to do now is we're going to copy this, we're going to duplicate this, and we are going to put style 2, and then we're going to duplicate that one more time, and we are going to put style 3. So forever loop. If show tooltip is 1, that means it's on. So that is going to stay the same no matter what for all of them. But for the second method, I just want the box to show up, let's say down here in the corner. That's all I want it to do. I don't want it to follow my mouse around. I don't want it to do the little chat bubble effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out all of this code and just drop it right here, because I need to take off some of it. I don't need all of it there. I'm going to grab the bottom half and I'm going to put it back where it belongs. Then I'm going to throw away the rest. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to go back up to motion, and I'm just going to drag a simple go to XY command. And I am going to input, I want it to be down here. So let's go with minus 185. Oh, sorry, not 485, 185. And I want it to be lower. So this is 0, 0, about where the cat is. So this way is negative numbers for X, and this way is negative numbers for Y. So let's go with minus 140-ish. See what that looks like. Okay, so now when I hit the second style, all that's going to happen while I'm hovering over, and I'll show you, is so 1 is this one here. If I hit 2 now, though, it'll just put the box down below. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm hugging the edge of the screen. So all I would do there is I want to bring that box up a hair. So we'll put minus 130 instead and see what that looks like. That looks a little bit better. Okay, and it's up to you where you want it to appear. Okay, but for this tutorial, that's where I want it. So that works fine. Now we want to program in the third style. And this, again, show tooltip is going to stay the same. This time, though, I do not want it to go to the mouse pointer. I want it to actually go to the sprites themselves. and then I want to move them a little bit from the position that they are at. And in order to do this, we are going to want to keep the change X and Y there, but we have to take out everything because we need to get rid of this part. Oh, actually, no, we don't. I'm not sure why I said that. So what we want to do here instead is we want to go somewhere, all right? But we want to go to item 1, we want to go to item 2, and we want to go to item 3. So now you could take a huge amount of time, and to be honest, I'm not even sure it would work because you have to be able to tell the mouse, the program, which one of these you're hovering over at any time. So the easiest way to do this is by doing so, and I will show you right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to operators here, and there's this really cool feature with Scratch where you can join words and numbers together or words and words together, and if you click on it, it'll actually just show you what it's doing. It's joining apple and banana together with a space in between. Okay, so if I was to, let's say, change this banana to a 1, it would come up as apple space 1, right? So if I was to change, so there's a space on the end of apple. If I took the space out, it would just be apple 1 with no space. So because I named these 3 sprites item 1, 2, and 3 with no spaces in between, what I wanted to do is I wanted to join the word item, and you have to spell it exactly how you have it spelled here. Okay, capital ITEM. And the number, though, has to be able to change based on something that you're doing. So if I hover over these, item 1 up here is going to change to 1, 2, and 3, which is exactly the 3 numbers that I need. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to join item number 1 with a variable of item. Okay, and so when I'm hovering over this, it's going to change this number here to 1, 2, and 3, and it's actually going to switch my costume, okay, to item 1, 2, and 3. But then there's another problem. The problem is that 1, 2, and 3 are going to be these squares. I don't want them to be the squares. I want them to be these cool little chat bubbly things that we've created. But these numbers are not 1, 2, and 3. They're 11, 12, and 13. So in order to fix this, all we are going to do in the code is down here where it says switch costume to item. We want that item, but now we are going to pull another join operator in here. And in the first area, we're just going to simply put the number 1. So what we want is we are going to add 1 to item, which is going to make it 11, 12, and 13 whenever you're hovering over these items. Okay, and that will solve our problem. So again, we're going to start up the game. Number 1, exactly where we want it. Number 2, down the bottom left. And now when we switch it to 3, it's going to add a 1 to the item number, and it's going to change it to our little chat bubble. Now, you'll see that that's now exactly where we want that lined up. So all we're going to do here, we'll shut that down so we see a little clearer because it makes everything a little blurry. We're going to change X and Y. Let's just put in a number. We'll put 75 here. And now let's try that out and see what that looks like. It's a little bit to the right. So what I would like to do is maybe center that. It's up to you. That looks okay. I mean, it's not horrible. You know what I'm pointing at. All right, but it's not centered or even has anything to do with where my mouse pointer is. All it is it's touching wherever my mouse pointer is touching, what sprite I'm touching, that's where it's going to, which is item 1, item 2, or item 3. So from this point forward, there was one thing that I forgot to mention, because this will cause an error in your program. Because since you have all 3 of these pressed and all 3 of these forever loops all lit up, so if I push 1, 2, and 3, um, it's not going to know which one to switch to anymore. If I try to go back to 1, it will not go back to 1. If I go back to 2, it will not go back to 2, etc. Okay, now in your game, you're probably not going to want to have 3 different styles. You're probably just going to use one or the other. You're not going to use all 3, or you might, I guess. It's possible that you would do that. But odds are you're probably just going to use one of these styles and just stick with the same style the entire time. So you will not have to set this up the way I have. But in case you do, we will repair this. Okay, it's not a difficult fix by any stretch. All we have to do is stop all the other scripts inside of this sprite as we click on the buttons. All right, pull this down. I guess I could have just duplicated this once. We'll put that there, and we will put this here. So you'll notice one thing. One last thing before we end this video. I could put this on the bottom, but what happens is going to broadcast first, then you're going to stop all scripts in the sprite, all other scripts in the sprite. Meaning, if I broadcast 3, I'm going to start this up, but since it is another script in the sprite, opposite of this right here, it's going to actually just shut it down right away. So let me just show you what I mean. The one is on. If I hit 2, it's going to shut everything else off but this one. See? And now if I hit 3, nothing's going to be on because it's going to start this right away. But then the next step is going to stop it again. Bam. See? So you have to make sure sometimes in Scratch that you put things in order the way you want them to come out. I want it to stop everything first, shutting them all down. Then I want it to start this one. Press like that. Okay? So I hope that this tutorial has helped you guys today. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to post them down below in the comments. I hope that this helps you guys. I will be putting out many more Scratch tutorials. I'm hoping to anyway in the future. And I will probably create a membership for this channel in the future. And what I'm planning on doing with that is maybe we will be working together to create a game. I myself do develop games in Scratch. I work at a school where I teach kids how to do Scratch and they really enjoy it. We enter into competitions every year with other schools where you have to have 6 hours to develop a game from start to finish. All the graphics and sound are given to you. All you have to do is the code. But it's very exciting and we do it every year. So I am planning on expanding on my Scratch tutorials. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. Anyway, if you don't mind liking and subscribing down below, that would be awesome. That would help me out immensely. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you very much.